Hey Luke, I assume that the ticket sales for movies in Sweden have not been adversely affected since their economy is currently open.
Well, you would be wrong, Michael.
What?
That's a very good organic way to start this. Yeah, so essentially there has been a conversation in this last week because of the coronavirus about how the economies of, several countries are going to open up, or when is this going to happen, and when is life going to return back to quote-unquote normal. But the thing is, life won't return back to normal because, as was just suggested by you with your question, in Sweden, when they don't have a strict lockdown, or really any lockdown at all, I think, movie ticket sales for cinemas are down by 90%. So people still aren't going to the cinema. So essentially, people don't want to go outside, even though there's not a lockdown, because guess what? There's still a virus out there. So yeah, I think what we're going to see is, if any movies are going to be released this year, any movies at all, it's going to have to be on things like Disney Plus or on Netflix. That's the only way, because this coronavirus thing is going to hang around for months. So all those movies that are going to be released in like August or September, they're going to have to be moved, or they're going to have to be released on like Disney Plus, because there's no going back to normal, essentially.
Yeah, I tell you what, we should just start with Boris Johnson's plan, where 60% of people get it in a matter of weeks, and then hundreds of thousands of people die. But you know what, Luke? We'd be able to watch those sweet, dank movies.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Trump in the United States, he's been very keen to open up the economy, and he said, why don't we just let this virus wash over America, which would kill millions of people? So, I don't know, maybe that's what will happen, and we can go back to life normally in the United States, because we'll have millions of people who die. So we can get to watching Mulan and Christopher Nolan's new film earlier than it was before. So, Trump making America great again. I'd certainly vote for him in 2020.
Yeah, well, there's one thing that can make America better. It's fewer Americans. Hello and welcome to Select and Reflect, the movie review podcast where we look at films that have come out in the near and distant past, we give them a couple of watches, and evaluate them beyond first impressions. I'm your host Michael, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Luke, and this week we are celebrating the 25-year anniversary of, I'm going to do it, Luke, Se7en, by looking at Se7en. Luke, why don't you start a thing or two about Seven?
Sure thing, Michael. So, Seven, stylized as Se7en, is a 1995 American crime thriller film directed by David Fincher and written by Andrew Kevin Walker. It stars Brad Pitt, Morgan Freeman, Gwyneth Paltrow, Kevin Spacey, and John C. McGinley. It was released in 1995.
Did you just say John Cena?
No, I did not, no. The guy off Scrubs, John C. McGinley.
Oh.
Yeah, he's in it. It was released on September the 22nd, 1995 in the United States. So yes, you're right, Michael, we're doing it because it's 25-year anniversary, but also this movie has some Christian things in it. The second deadly sin's based around Christian whatever, mythology.
And it is Easter.
Yeah, and it was Easter, so I was like, this is a good time to do it, talk about Christianity a bit. And anyway, Michael, even though it wasn't released anywhere near Easter in 1995...
Yeah, missed the mark there.
Yes. Can you tell me the budget for
No, I cannot. I always undershoot it. Like, I undershoot it so often, I kind of want to make sure I overshoot it. So let's go for 30 million. 25 million.
You still undershot it with your 30.
Holy shit.
Because it's 33 million.
Okay, well, I was at least close.
Yeah, you were close.
Before I changed my mind.
Can you tell me the box office? I think you're going to have the same problem here, I have to say. But go on, give it a guess.
Well, if the same problem is that I just undershoot it, then I'll be happy with that. So, I don't know, 120 million?
Double it.
240 million.
Add 80.
320 million.
327 million. This
Holy guac.
movie was a amazing hit, absolutely insane hit. And
wow.
And you can imagine, because maybe it stars Morgan Freeman and Brad Pitt, and I guess a lot of people were talking about the ending, which would have been, one of the most shocking endings that audiences would have seen at the time. So yeah, that probably explains it. Anyway, Michael, can you tell me whether you like this movie or not?
No, I can't, Luke. Oh, let's see if I'm going to try not to overshoot this. I did like this film.
No, your problem is you undershoot things.
Yeah, that's true.
That's your problem, yeah.
Sorry, I hate this film. I undershot it again. Try double the amount of liking, Michael. Did you like it? So I did like it, yeah. Did you like it?
I did also like it very much. So, yes, we are in agreement with that. The first time we've actually said we liked a movie in ages, it feels like.
Yeah, it's true.
That is my fault. But anyway, Michael, how many nitpicks do you have for Se7en?
I really hope I don't have 7. I've actually got 6.
You've actually got 6. Okay.
Yeah, it was kind of weird actually because I should explain. I was thinking, I'm not going to get any nitpicks for this. I think because of that, I was hyper vigilant. But I actually don't think any of mine are bullshit.
Okay, well, I've got 2 nitpicks and I got 2 lit picks.
Oh, that's interesting.
So,
I was thinking about a lit pick, but I decided against it, and I've already forgotten what it was now. So yeah, you go first then.
Okay.
Maybe you can do your lit picks later if you like.
Okay, we'll do that then, sure. So, my first nitpick, the police chief gives David Mills, played by Brad Pitt, obviously, the task of solving a murder of the top defence attorney in the city that they live in. But apparently the fat man who ate too much, that's too hard for him. But yeah, the defence attorney, yeah, he's on that one, which I just found a bit weird. Yeah, and my last nitpick is the fact that it's such a cliche, and it's a shame they do it in this movie. There's this newspaper clipping that John Doe has cut out and stuck onto one of his cabinets in his house or his apartment. And the newspaper clipping says, "Paedophile freed by defence lawyer Gould." That's how it's pronounced, right? Gould. And Gould is circled on the clipping, as if John Doe would cut the bit of newspaper out and then circle Gould, so he remembers, yes, it's Gould, that's the guy whom I'm after.
Well, I know, he might accidentally think that he's trying to kill paedophiles, and then he'd have to, commit suicide.
Yeah, exactly. So, that was, again, it's just a stupid thing which happens in these movies, which I was just like, oh, fucking hell, come on. But then that's it. That's only my 2 nitpicks, so give me your 6, Michael.
Okay, well, the first one actually I think is quite a fun one. They said the line, they say in self-defense classes, you shouldn't yell help if someone's attacking you, you should yell fire. And I was like, that seems weird. So I looked it up. I actually looked up, should you yell fire instead of help? And basically, all the articles I found were people mentioning this film, actual, self-defense people. It's all these articles in, different places, I'm an actual self-defense teacher. Don't do this. If you yell fire, people will run away. Yelling help, people will come help you. So, because to me, I was like, hold on a minute, why would yelling fire help? And basically, it seems like all the self-defense people on, Google are saying, yeah, don't yell fire. When you need help, just yell help. So he was wrong. When they find the guy who, the drug dealer guy, whatever he was, in the bedroom, they can't smell him until they lift up the sheets. They walk up to him and they think he's alive, and they lift up sheets, and instantly he smells bad. And you think, well, surely they'd smell it I
maybe they were just recoiling at the sight.
All the stank. Oh yeah, maybe that's it. But still, you'd think he would stink. That pederast line didn't age well. Kevin Spacey's like, by the way, he's a pederast, and I just thought.
Okay, well, I was going to talk about that later.
Okay, yeah, okay. And then the guys in the helicopter who are following along, when obviously they're escorting Kevin Spacey, they say there's definitely not an ambush there. And they're very confident there's not an ambush there, because there's nothing around. And then there's literally a caravan right next to where they stop. And I think, well, hold on a minute, why are they so confident there's, there could be people in that caravan? But they don't even seem to acknowledge it. They don't get out their guns and go check out that caravan. They just get out as if it's not concerning that they've been asked to stop exactly where there is a caravan which they can't see into, which could easily have loads of people in it. It could have a whole army of weird drug addicts or whatever with guns and stuff who are going to come out and attack them, and they don't seem to even acknowledge it as an issue. So I just thought it was strange.
Yep, that's.
What are your lit picks?
So my lit picks are the opening credits. That's the first one. I didn't know.
Oh, because it had a closer by 9 Inch Nails.
Yeah, that's why. No, it was really good. Really nice style to it and all of that. It was very, very nice. I think if you have to compare it to another movie which had really good opening credits, I'd say, well, obviously...
Austin Powers.
No, not Austin Powers.
It does have some good opening credits.
Yes. I was thinking Do the Right Thing. Obviously, do you remember that? The opening credits?
Yeah, I do, yeah.
Obviously, they're very different. I'm like, which movies have the best opening credits that I've seen? Se7en is up there with Do the Right Thing for me. 2 very good movies as well. And so my next lit pick is the fact that this movie was even made. I don't really know where else to put this, but what happened was the studio sent the original script to David Fincher, which turned out to be the actual script which was used in this movie. But of course, as we know, the ending is actually quite a dark ending, and the studio changed it. It had several alternative endings instead of the actual ending to this movie, but they accidentally sent the original script to David Fincher. And this movie could have been extremely different if he had got one of the other scripts. And I don't know whether he would still have made it, but yeah, it was. It's great that they New Line Cinema, I think, fucked it up. So David Fincher saw it and was like, "Oh yeah, I'm keeping this." And then Brad Pitt threatened to withdraw from the project because obviously the studio still wanted to change it, even though David Fincher liked the original script. Brad Pitt threatened to quit the project if it was changed. And there you go. It could have easily been different. Also, I heard a story, I listened to a story about how at the premiere you had audiences walking out who had obviously no idea what this movie was about. Maybe it wasn't the premiere, it was like a screening for the movie, and it had been advertised as like Morgan Freeman from Driving Miss Daisy is going to be in this movie. So audiences got a bit of a shock. It was just incredible that this movie was kind of made in the first place. It was it could have been so very different, particularly the ending. Credit to everyone who made it happen, because it is a great movie, and so nearly it might have been the case even if the ending had been changed, but so nearly wasn't as good as it actually turned out to be.
Maybe all the other endings it had were much better. Do you ever think about that, Luke?
I have thought about that, because they explained the other endings. One of the other endings was
it was Earth all along.
It was Brad Pitt's dog's head, which was in the box, and another ending was that Mills gets shot by Morgan Freeman, I think.
I could see that. So he was about to kill John Doe, and then he got shot.
Yeah,
like that. Yeah.
Or Morgan Freeman shot fucking John Doe, which again wouldn't fit in with the theme either.
Yeah,
so
that wouldn't make sense. I would like it actually if all three shot each other, and then Steve Buscemi showed up and stole the briefcase full of money.
Yeah, another radically different ending was actually Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman have to race to save Gwyneth Paltrow, and she doesn't actually die.
Actually, I think there was another ending where Morgan Freeman and Gwyneth Paltrow were both in rooms that were filled with gasoline that was going to set on fire, and Brad Pitt went to go rescue. What has The Dark Knight got to do with this? I don't know. I've got a theory. They're both films.
Okay, that's good.
I've noticed that's a running theme on this podcast, actually. Anyway, let's talk about the plot, Luke.
Yes, so
the murder mystery.
Mm-hmm. So let's read the plot. For the actual plot summary on Wikipedia. The film tells the story of David Mills, a detective who partners the retiring William Somerset. Obviously, David Mills is played by Brad Pitt, and William Somerset is played by Morgan Freeman. They track down a serial killer who uses the 7 deadly sins as a motif in his murders. Michael, what are the 7 deadly sins? Hit me.
Sloth, gluttony, greed, envy, wrath, shit.
You mean
lust.
wrath, by the way.
Yeah, sorry, yeah. Lust, and the 7th one, which is probably, I can't remember which ones I haven't said. That's kind of the issue right now. I probably should have started with system, and I didn't, and I'm going to live to regret it.
Okay, go through the murders. So the first one's gluttony.
Yeah, so the first one's gluttony.
Second one's
greed.
Third one.
Pride. Pride is the one I was missing.
Yes. So
pride.
The third one is sloth. The fourth one is lust. The fifth one is pride.
The
sixth one is
envy.
And the seventh is wrath.
Yes.
Wrath.
If we're being northern.
If we're being correct. Those are the 7 deadly sins, and obviously the murderer, John Doe, played by Kevin Spacey, uses those as motivation, I guess. That's maybe the best way to describe it, to perform these murders. So, Michael, let's talk about the plot.
Yes.
What do you have to say? First off, you go first.
Well, okay. I think I want to start this because you mentioned how loads of people were walking out of this film, and I think it's worth noting this film is very.
Well, they won't work. Just to clear it, they weren't walking out at the end of the movie. They walked out and were complaining about it.
Oh, okay. So they weren't walking out during it. Okay, but they walked out and they were kind of complaining about it. Okay, I got you.
Yeah, because you think about it, the end is the really awful part, which would make people just think, "Oh, how terrible,"
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, personally, I'm down for some good old decapitation. But I tell you what I'm not down for, Luke. Some fucking guy being in a hospital bed for like a year, barely being kept alive, and he's still fucking alive. He looks like a corpse. It's gross, Luke. Gross. I hate it. Because that's the thing. This film, it is quite, I guess, gruesome. Not, like, full on Saw 6 or something like that. But it is pretty gruesome, which I think is interesting because obviously, you'd kind of think that it's sort of just a standard murder mystery. I mean, we've come a long way since Agatha Christie, I'll tell you that. And obviously, I think that was the main thing that I found kind of unique about this film and significant about this film. I was like, that's pretty gruesome. This guy was like forced to eat food until like his stomach exploded inside of his own body or whatever. And then obviously you've got a woman being, I was going to say made love to, the most inappropriate use of that expression, with a knife dildo or whatever, a knife strap on. I don't know what the term would be.
You're going to sound like a New York Times or Washington Post reporter talking about Joe Biden's sexual assault.
Yes. But basically, a lot of kind of the murders are very unpleasant, which I thought was interesting because you like I say, you might kind of think it would be, obviously there are a lot of murder mysteries films out there. And this film, I almost felt like when I was watching, I was almost thinking like it kind of reminded me of like the first Saw film in terms of being like there is that very gruesome underpinning to it, as well as on top of the police mystery angle to it. So yeah, what do you think about that? How gruesome it was?
Well, yeah, I mean, it is an extremely gruesome movie, and that's the thing which separates it. And I think it's probably best to talk about how gruesome it is when we talk about the themes, because there is a reason why it is so gruesome. So I think let's just stick to instead of the aesthetic, I guess, the actual plot of the movie, first and foremost, which obviously, as you said, it is a mystery movie. And it's not Agatha Christie, but it still has some, I guess, tropes, you'd say, from mystery movies, which is, of course, at the beginning you have a cliche, a cop, Morgan Freeman, who's retiring, who thinks he's too old for this, partnered with a young idealist.
He's getting too old for this shit.
Yeah, exactly. With a young idealistic cop, Brad Pitt. He wants to help him, or just want to help him, wants to help, basically, people and make his way in the city, do things, be a real champion for people, I guess, he's got a kind of a hero goal, that's what he wants to be, and you would kind of be forgiven for rolling your eyes at how cliche it is at the start. It's like, oh, I've seen this before. This is nothing new. Two partners who are paired together who, don't like each other, don't have the same values, but they learn to get along. I do think a knock against this movie is, I don't know, tell me if you agree or disagree. There's not much chemistry between Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman. I think it'd be better if there was. They don't just seem to jive together. Maybe that's because they're just so completely different. But I don't know. I feel like if this movie would be better,
agree, actually,
better chemistry. What do you think?
No, yeah, especially when they have the scene together, where they go over to, he gets invited to dinner. Yeah. And that scene of them just like laughing after the train goes by, I don't know, I was like, what are they doing? To me, it was, it didn't seem very believable. So
yeah, I think you have a few more scenes with them just like talking to each other as they're going up elevators, to a place.
Yeah, like it could be mentioning that time when Morgan Freeman got stuck in that nest of gun dogs.
Wait, what?
Because, in Attack of the Clones, when they're going up the elevator, like, not as scared as you were in that time you went up in that nest of gundogs.
Oh my god. I did not expect an Attack of the Clone reference there. You caught me completely off guard.
I know, that's what I think of when I think of people having conversations in elevators.
Yeah.
Just riding up on that elevator.
An incredibly memorable line from an incredibly memorable movie. Yeah, but so there's that. There's the chemistry, and there's the, dynamic between the two. Again, a bit cliche. But again, what this is a mystery movie. First and foremost, that is what it is. That's what it was marketed as. This guy, he's killing people, and he's doing it with a religious angle to it. Killing people because of the 7 deadly sins. And I thought it was interesting that the way the 7 deadly sins are revealed to the audience, like this is what the killer is doing. Morgan Freeman does it in a way which isn't actually that interesting. It isn't revealed like you would expect in a normal like detective movie or drama. Normally you'd have dramatic music, and Morgan Freeman would suddenly reach over some paper and say,
the camera would like pan around him in a circle.
Yeah, maybe not that far, but just like you watch the scene in the movie, he just lists them off like quite casually. It's like 7 deadly sins: greed, sloth, wrath, envy.
I was thinking about the lit pick. I almost wanted to put it as a lit pick that he didn't just happen to name the sins in the exact order of the murders that were going to happen. Because
you noticed that?
Well, no, because he didn't.
I know, I'm saying, but you made sure to look at that.
Yeah, well, yeah, I did, because I was thinking like, wouldn't it be, just kind of, because it was actually because I was thinking of doing it as a nitpick. I was thinking like, if he happens to name the sins in the exact order that happens in the film, I'm going to write that. I'm going to have 7 nitpicks, which would have been great. I wish I would have got 7 nitpicks. But yeah, and then I was like, he didn't do that. So then I was almost thinking about giving it a nitpick, because, I don't like when these coincidences happen in my film.
No, it is authentic, I guess, when he's just listing them out of order. And so yeah, that's good, but I was just surprised by that. But in mystery movies, there are twists and turns to make this interesting, and it does. I guess it is interesting, the twists and turns that happen in this movie. I think there's 3 really, really nice ones. One which I really liked. So the first one is, obviously, they think they find the guy who was the killer, turns out to be the victim, and he is alive, which, of course, is just an incredible, gruesome scene. What do you think when you saw that for the first time, Michael, when he was alive? What did you think? What was your first reaction?
Yeah, unpleasant, disturbed. Just like I think I like had to pause it just to look at him, just to be like, that's mental.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably the most I guess a shocking scene, I suppose, in a way, for me. I know, like, I was going to say, the last scene's very strong, but for me, that was, like, quite a shock, because after that point, you're kind of, I don't want to say used to it, but definitely, that was a scene I found really shocking, where it's like a line like, holy shit.
Yeah, the movie takes you to another level of gruesome there. That is like, oh my fucking Christ. That is, it's such a perfect setup, because, again, you think he's dead. Obviously, you think he's dead, but like, he can't be anything other than dead. And, yeah, it's just a wonderfully executed scene. It really is. And the other big twist, which is the one which I like the most, because obviously the previous one with the victim is alive, that's quite shocking. But the twist which I really liked, which shocked me more than anything else in the movie, is you actually find out, or the detectives find out, who the killer is 1 hour into the movie, or just over 1 hour into the movie. So the first time I watched it, obviously you have Morgan Freeman, Brad Pitt going up to this random apartment, checking on this Jonathan Doe, and then they look at him and he's like, oh god, that's Jonathan Doe, and he shoots at him, and it's like, oh yeah, that's definitely him. And I was like, wow, really? 1 hour into this movie, and they've already found the guy? I mean, they normally figure, the detectives out. Like, they normally figure this stuff out just before the last act. That's normally when it is, and we've still got about 50 minutes of this movie to go. So I thought that was a really nice twist. I wasn't expecting it. I don't know about you. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a interesting. I don't want to say subversion. I don't think subversion is necessarily the right term. But I guess it's an interesting. I think.
Because when you walk out, what you expect? Sorry, when the detectives walk up to the house, you expect to knock in
to be the wrong person. Yeah,
to be the wrong person. It's another guy. Oh, he hasn't been here in ages.
Some old lady.
Yeah, exactly. Or the guy hasn't been in the apartment in like months, but that's not the case.
Or like, I don't know, a priest. It's just like, yeah. I mean, I don't know, but yeah. I definitely think it's an interesting kind of way to change the story, and I think it does obviously show you a different aspect of being a policeman as well, or a police officer. I don't know, because that's not be sexist. Where obviously, even if you know who the guy is, there's knowing and then there's proving, and obviously that aspect is introduced as well, which I think is interesting. Although it does make it kind of weird actually when later on John Doe, when he's in the car, is like, would you really have found? It's like, I mean, they already found you once, mate. So I don't know. Let's not be too cocky here, buddy. When he's like, would you have found me? I mean, would you have found me if I hadn't handed myself in? Yeah, probably. They already found you once. So that's why I like to think he turned himself in, because it was like, holy shit, they might actually find me. I need to for my ego, got to make sure I do this. Yeah.
So obviously, you mentioned the last twist. He turns himself in the final act. Not the most surprising thing, I guess, because it happens, in quite a lot of movies when
Joker does it.
Yeah, okay. Well, that happened after this movie, so I wonder in 1995 it was something weird, but again, it's like, oh, the guy who's masterminding this all turns himself in. Perhaps not the greatest shock in the world. What do you think?
No, yeah, I mean, I think obviously there is an interesting aspect to it, but it's definitely not. It wasn't like too shocking, because I think it's the kind of thing where you can imagine like the guy who, I mean, like say, is the mastermind. You think he'd kind of have everything under control, and the way he acts is kind of in accordance with that. So yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, basically, it's not the most surprising thing of a kind of a trope, but yeah, one of the greatest endings to a film I've ever seen. The last scene of Se7en. I think the setup is perfect. The car scene, the acting in general, Kevin Spacey's acting is just absolutely incredible. In that, when they're driving in the car, he's just got the perfect like voice, which is just a bit. It's not a deep voice. He's got quite a high voice.
Yeah, that's quite innocent.
Yeah, that makes it a bit like off.
Yeah,
and he's so committed to it as well. It's just such a great performance in the backseat of that car. It really is. He really does steal the show. And yeah, then the payoff at the end of the scene, and we find out what is in the box. So I guess, when is the first time you watched this movie, Michael?
First time I watched it, actually, coincidentally, it was before you mentioned we were going to be doing it, but not that much before, because something I've been trying to do with some of the films we've been watching is, and some of the films I've been reviewing, is to get a lot of context, which mostly means watching the other directors' work. And I think it was when actually I think it might be when we were watching Fight Club, actually. And I was like, well, I want to kind of have an idea of all the David Fincher films. So I've seen some of them, but I was like, I want to watch all of the David Fincher films. And that way I will, kind of have an idea of what kind of stuff he's done. And I hadn't seen this film. So I was like, well, I'll get this film. And I got all my David Fincher films. And I watched them all. And yeah, I watched it. So whenever we did Fight Club, it would have been the week that we did Fight Club. I actually watched it.
All right. And so, what did you think was in the box?
Honestly, it's kind of weird. I don't know if I had the strongest opinion on or like thought about what was in the box. But I think I didn't really have a thing about it. I didn't really think about it until obviously we find out what it is. So I didn't really have like I think it's this and then find out it's something else. I just as we found out what it was the first time I was like, oh, so that's what it is. So yeah, I didn't have like a initial presupposition about what it was.
Was it darker than what you expected it to be?
I wouldn't. I mean, I would say that at that point, honestly, and for me, like at that point, I wasn't like shocked by it. And maybe this is weird, but for me, like it was kind of in keeping with what I had been sort of expecting. Which yes. I guess, is sort of weird, but I wasn't like, someone's decapitated. I mean, because you have to bear in mind, at this point we've seen a woman get, knife banged.
That's the layman's term, isn't it? Knife bang.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think the reason why I ask is obviously it's an iconic scene. It's an iconic line. What's in the box? And I heard that line before I actually saw this movie.
Yeah.
So when you see those memes after watching this movie, it kind of puts memes in a different context because, it's fucking Gwyneth Paltrow's head. That's what's in the box. But like you, the first time I watched it, I was expecting it to be something dark because this is an incredibly dark movie. You weren't expecting anything else, really. But
yeah.
I have to admit, maybe this is just my fucked up mind, but I was expecting something darker than it being Gwyneth Paltrow's head. What I was expecting...
Oh, I want to know what you were expecting.
So, I don't know why I thought this, but I thought because...
I'm really ready for this.
It was, obviously, we know that Gwyneth Paltrow tells Morgan Freeman that it was, that she was pregnant.
It was going to be the fetus.
I thought it was going to be the fetus of Gwyneth Paltrow and Brad Pitt's baby in the box. That's what I initially thought it was going to be, because obviously I was like, well, it can't be her body. It was just her head, obviously, at the end, which is pretty bad, but I thought it was going to be the fetus, and I thought there was going to be something, because John Doe's a religious guy, it would have some meaning. I don't know,
Yeah, like the random fetus in Passion of the Christ. Remember that?
Yeah, I do.
Let's not forget that.
Yeah. Well, because Christians love fetuses so much. So I thought it'd be something to do with that. But then maybe think about it. Why would John Doe commit abortion? Obviously, he'd be very much against that. But he'd be fine with murdering. But abortion is a no-no. But yeah, so I thought it was going to be that. So that's just how dark this movie is, that it took me to thinking that. I guess it's because of the size of the box, that's why, because it was like, well, it can't be Gwyneth Paltrow, because obviously she won't fit in there, but obviously just the head, well, that makes sense. But yeah, just, I think, what do you think about the setup to it, Michael, with the way Morgan Freeman walks over there and just, he realises, and then you see the camera move around following Brad Pitt, and then there's the camera shots of Kevin Spacey just in complete control, just saying stuff so calmly. And it's such a well-executed scene. It is so good. And I said at the start, it's one of the greatest endings to a film I've ever seen. And yeah, what do you think? Do you agree with that? Because it's quite a strong claim.
Well, yeah, that was a very leading way of asking the question, actually, Luke, wasn't it?
Why was it?
Well, because you're like, what do you think about it? Because it's so awesome.
It is awesome. Yeah, so you have to agree with me.
See, to tell you the truth, there's a part of me that is a bit disappointed in the ending. But this does come with a caveat. It's partially to do with my own presuppositions. But it's to do with something which I felt was established. Which is that, because what I mentioned is I kind of said it in jest, but I said that, Kevin Spacey turned himself in because he'd already been found out once. And that therefore he showed up because he didn't want to get caught again under anything other than his own terms. And basically there's another way of implying that Kevin Spacey, he's not necessarily this mastermind. Instead, he's somebody who got rumbled unexpectedly and then was like, oh shit, I feel like an idiot now. And then, of course, you get Brad Pitt kind of having a go at Kevin Spacey when he's in the back of the car saying like, you're an idiot, you're a failure, you're shit. And I was actually quite excited because what I thought we were going to see and what I thought the twist was kind of leading up to was actually Kevin Spacey isn't a mastermind. He is essentially just, and the point would be, and the way I thought the story was going, was that Kevin Spacey, we're going to see, actually, this guy is just crazy. And, he thinks he's this fantastic mastermind killer, but actually, he's already made some mistake and, he's not that great. And the one aspect of that stuck with me is I was thinking, like, really, when you break it down, there's two things I find interesting. Number one, seeing as he did a lot of this stuff in advance, you can't help but feel that he kind of threw this all together, and there's probably like some other dead bodies out there that he had like that he was going to use, but I was like, oh, I'm going to do this instead, and he came up with this new plan. So that's number one. And then actually, so I should say the other thing which made me think, oh, he's not really a master genius. When he's like, well, I have to kind of change my plan a bit because you showed up and ruined everything. And I thought that would be kind of interesting, again, subversion on the fact that usually, these serial killer films, it's always like, oh, the serial killer's a genius. The serial killer is like, oh, he's got everything planned. He's got everybody under his thumb. Everything works out exactly as he predicted. And I was thinking, oh, it would be interesting to actually have this character who, he plays that kind of character as if he thinks he's that kind of character. But actually, when you look at him, you realize, oh, wait, he's not actually that much of a genius. And to be honest, I feel like there's still an aspect of that there in the film, because when you think about the envy thing was a bit weird, because it's like Kevin Spacey was like, oh, I envied your normal life, so I chopped your wife's head off. But that doesn't make any sense. Because if he envied
I'm going to say it does make sense.
Okay, see, well, I'm going to finish my thought just for a hot minute. Okay. So for me, I was like, oh, that doesn't really make any sense. And then the other thing is, I was thinking, I would have liked it if Brad Pitt didn't kill Lester Burnham, Kevin Spacey. Because again, like for me, the way I thought it was going is I thought it was going to kind of subvert the idea of the genius serial killer who's got everything under control and everything planned out and everything goes exactly as he foresaw because he's got some kind of supernatural ability to arrange everything to fit perfectly into place. And then instead it would be like Brad Pitt would just go, no, you're Minority Report style. You're under arrest. You have the right to remain silent. And then Kevin Spacey, I keep wanting to call him Lester Burnham anyway, would be like, oh shit, my whole plan is incomplete. And you go, yeah, that's what you get for being a serial killer. Well, that'd be
incredibly shit.
See, well, that's the thing. I mean, I guess I just...
is that what you wanted?
See, I'm a massive Last Jedi fan, as you know, so I like being disappointed by things. No, yeah, I genuinely am not kidding. I would have preferred... And again, I should clarify, like, for what this film was, it was really good. And that's why I added the massive caveat that this was partially because of my presuppositions. Although it was presupposition based on where I thought the film was leading me. And I've obviously laid out why I thought the film was leading us here. Obviously, the fact that Kevin Spacey gets rumbled so early on. Which implies that, I'm not going to go through that again. But basically, I did think it was leading it there. And I thought, the twist was, or kind of the twist, or maybe the message of the film was going to be, don't idolize these serial killers. And obviously I know no one idolizes them, but the idea of the serial killer is like this genius mastermind who knows everything, has got everything planned, when actually these guys are just kind of often deluded. Obviously they're psychopaths, they're insane, but often I would imagine they're quite deluded and they think much better than they are.
I'll tell you why that ending is shit. Not only because it would have been anticlimactic, but you think about the things that John Doe has done beforehand. He clearly is a mastermind. He clearly is incredibly smart to keep that guy alive for a whole year after he took his first photo for the police to find it. And that's just one of his murders. The other murders,
but how hard is it to keep someone alive, really? If anything, I would actually struggle to kill somebody more than I struggle to keep them alive. I've been keeping people alive for ages, like my family, you.
Well, the clues he leaves as well in the crime scenes, and obviously his plan at the end. I guess in your version he wouldn't have the plan at the end, but I'm saying he has this plan at the end to obviously. Gwyneth Paltrow's dead, so he must die. And then here's the one thing I think is a bit flimsy about the ending. So John Doe dies because he is envy, so that's his sin. He's envious of Brad Pitt's life. And I think that works because, which we'll get onto in the themes, but he does actually genuinely envy Brad Pitt's life because Brad Pitt's a simple guy and John Doe sees so much sinning in the world that he can't stand it. Kind of opposite to Lester Burnham and how he sees so much beauty in the world.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, very two completely different characters in that regard. But so there's that. And also, is there a death for Wrath? Because Mills, I thought this was going to happen the first time I saw it, because Mills is meant to be Wrath. John Doe says that. So shouldn't Brad Pitt then die? But he doesn't die. You could argue that maybe it's a symbolic death. Like, he's lost his career, he's going to go to prison. So
yeah, I was actually wondering, by the way, how long do you think he'd go for prison for?
I don't know.
I don't really know what the rules are.
Depends on the state. I guess he'd get extreme leniency, as much leniency as he'd get, but obviously he'd still have to go to prison for, murdering someone. But so what I thought would be a better ending is perhaps then Mills shoots himself, so he dies because he is Wrath. And he realises that his career's fucked, his wife's dead, he's just killed a murderer. His life is over.
Yeah, you thought he was going to, I thought, actually, I did think he was going to commit suicide too. I thought it was going there.
Yes, that's the one thing I thought that would have made the last scene better. But again, I just think overall, There's the theme isn't about how John Doe isn't a super serial killer and he's not a mastermind and we shouldn't take these guys seriously. That's not what the theme of the film is about. So I get it. They go down that path.
For what it is, I would say it's good. It's well done. I don't think I was blown away by it as you, and I think part of that is kind of just for subjective reasons. Like I just I thought it was good. Like the thing is, like, you know what you've done, Luke, because you're like so enthusiastic about it. I feel like I'm being like really negative. But really, I did think it was very good. I thought it was like very good. I wouldn't say it was the best I mean, obviously, I don't really know what I would say was the best ending to any film ever. And maybe, I don't know, maybe if I rank them all.
Well, it has so many... Well, I was just going to say, because it has so many qualities in it. The setup is perfect. It is surprising. The theme that this movie has been going for, it ties up nicely in the end, which we'll get onto. It is, the acting is great, as I mentioned. Kevin Spacey is really, really good. All these little pieces combine to make that ending just amazing in my view. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think, I think Kevin Spacey is good in a lot of things, which is,
Oh, really?
It's unfortunate. I mean, I don't like his acting, but I like him as a man.
Oh god! Do you want to talk about how Kevin Spacey is worse than John Doe? No, I mean, like that's the thing about watching these old Kevin Spacey movies, because he was, I think, probably my favorite actor before what happened, because he gave performances like this.
Have you ever seen the film K-Pax?
No.
You should watch it. It will further complicate your opinion of Kevin Spacey, because that's also a really good film.
Well, because it's not really complicated. I appreciate he's an incredible actor, and then I just forget. No, I don't forget. I just sideline everything else until the movie's over. Then I go back to not liking him. But obviously, House of Cards was one of my favourite TV shows. The first 2 seasons, there's Usual Suspects, there's American Beauty, there's this, there's some more stuff as well. He was just such an incredible actor, but he couldn't resist sexually assaulting young men, and that is a nitpick for sure. That's a ding right there. That's a sin. Yes. So.
Oh, actually, have the Cinema Sins ever done Se7en? Because I think if they did, they could make a lot of sin puns.
You know what? I think they did, but I don't remember any sin puns.
Well, to be honest, I wouldn't put it past them. They're not exactly high effort.
No.
We're sending for them, Luke.
Yeah.
Last week it was Chapo Trap House. This week it's Cinema Sins.
Oh, God, I know. Well, one day we'll catch a big fish. That'll be our ticket to the big time. Anyway, so we should now talk, even though we disagreed on the ending. So what was your biggest criticism of the ending then, just to be clear? Just give me one.
No, honestly, I mean, the thing is, like, because I don't really have a criticism. Because ultimately, I would say the ending was, I'm not in the habit of rating endings, but I'd say the ending was, like, decent. So really, the only criticism I'd have, which I admit is not a particularly powerful criticism, is that it didn't go with where I thought the film was going based on some of what I thought the film had set up. But even that's not really a criticism, and ultimately, you're
sounding like someone who is invested in, like, Game of Thrones or Star Wars and doesn't go the way they want it to go.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was really invested. This was worse than season 8, Luke. It was worse than I mean, really, like, the truest thing, so I don't really have a criticism, because, for me, the real, in terms of, like, objectively assessing the quality of the film, I would just say, it was really good. I don't know if I thought it was the best ending ever, but if I didn't think it was the best ending ever, it's just because, I don't know, I've probably seen other endings and been like, oh wow, that's cool. But, there was nothing wrong with the ending.
Okay. Well, I guess I just think I guess you can't be objective about this is the most amazing ending. But I just think if you're talking about if you were to be objective about endings, you'd have all these qualities that create an ending. How suspenseful it was, incredibly suspenseful. How surprising it was. I think it was surprising. I don't think anybody expected that to happen when they're watching the movie for the first time. Like Gwyneth Paltrow's head is going to arrive in a box. That the acting was great. It ties the theme up together. All of these things. That's why I thought it is one of the greatest endings to a film I've ever seen. Shot brilliantly as well. It's shot brilliantly too.
I mean, it's definitely. I guess what the kids are calling it nowadays is competent, not in like a bad way. I know that oftentimes people say competent, they kind of mean it as an insult, but I mean like competent in the sense of like objectively, the same way like you can say like a film's objectively well shot. Or objectively, well edited. Well, I don't know if you can say objectively. Well, you can probably say objectively well edited. And actually, look, I had a really great Zoom conversation. I've already mentioned it, but one of the best things ever happened. So I don't know if you know much about Zoom, but when you're on a portable device, you only see one person at once. And obviously, when somebody starts talking, it switches to their image just if you're having a big group call. And it cut in such a way that so someone was talking, kind of looking off into the distance, and then it cut. Someone else started talking, and they were looking in like the same place. And basically, it matched continuity. It was the best thing ever. It was as if like one person, like somebody looked. It was literally like a motivated cut created entirely by Zoom. So what I'm saying is that Zoom is a better editor than the guy who edited Bohemian Rhapsody. So that's just my story about how there is such a thing as objectively good editing. The point being, if we're talking about objectivity, yes, it's good. But ultimately, I think when you get down to kind of like the differences between 7 and 8s and 8 and 9s and 9 and 10s, there's obviously going to be an element of subjectivity. So yeah.
All right,
for me, it's just like I didn't feel the oomph, but I can definitely say, it was well done, well crafted.
Okay, fair enough. You couldn't feel the oomph. That's the analysis we like to hear.
Yes.
Okay. I'm kidding. So, Michael, let's talk about the themes now.
Yes.
So, I think the best way to look at the themes is to go to explore the three main characters in the movie, which obviously is David Mills, played by Brad Pitt, John Doe, played by Kevin Spacey, and Will Somerset, played by Morgan Freeman, and basically go through each of the characters. And I think the ultimate conclusion to the theme is, what the ultimate conclusion of the theme is that life is shit. It is incredibly shit, but there's still hope. And
that's literally the quote they have at the end.
Yeah, it is kind of the quote, the Hemingway quote they have at the end. So anyway, let's go through the three characters. So the first one is David Mills. He's a simple guy. He's not very deep, as you can see throughout the movie. I think Brad Pitt plays those characters well, who aren't very deep. That's his best.
Like in 12 Monkeys.
Yeah. Obviously very idealistic. A adolescent's view of the world, I guess. Believes in good and evil, very, very simple and all that. And Somerset, there's the scene which I'll reference another couple of times while going through this, the themes and the characters, is when Somerset says to him in that conversation in the bar about how John Doe isn't the devil. He's just a man. And that clearly is, I think it cuts in with him saying that, so implying that David Mills said something like that John Doe was the devil. And this is why, leading into John Doe, this is why John Doe envies Mills, and why it does make sense for him to kill Gwyneth Paltrow because he envies his life, because Mills has an incredibly simple mindset. John Doe, he sees so much sinful behaviour in the world. He can't just shrug it off.
He's like Taxi Driver.
Yeah. He can't just shrug it off like Mills. He can't shut all of his senses off, and he sees on every street corner. He gives this great speech when he's in the back of the car about how sinful the world is and how evil lurks on every corner, and it just pisses him off so much. Obviously, you see those books that he's written in his apartment, which, there's so many books, and he's scribbled all these notes on. He's obsessed with it, and he sees guys like David Mills, who has a wife, has a kid on the way, has a decent job, who's, just living kind of carefree, trying to do his best. And that could piss him off. He could envy Mills. Like, how can a guy just go through life like that? And I don't know about you, Michael, but sometimes that it's kind of a relatable thing. It is like, well, how can people just go through life just not caring about stuff which I care about? What do you think?
Yeah, I do kind of think that, actually. I think there is a there's like certain things where, especially anyone who's ever had kind of like existential dread, which is something which I think the more you think about things, the more likely you are to get existential dread of like, what's the point in this? Like, sometimes I actually do find, like a lot of the time when I'm a productive person, I do loads of, schoolwork or, anything else. I think, this is great and being productive. But every now and then I'll be being productive, and I'll just have this sense of just dread descend upon me, where I just think to myself, what's the point in this? What are you doing? Okay. You get a good degree, but why? To what end? Who are you really, does it really matter in the end? And obviously that's something which, I imagine, and I hate to say it, but, I imagine somebody just say, is happy to go to an office job, 9 to 5, then afterwards they go for a drink, and then they get home and they, watch TV, and then they go to sleep, and then they do it all again next day. And I would kind of imagine that a lot of people who would do that probably never have that moment of like, what's the point in all this? Because, I think eventually you just get used to it. And sometimes I do envy that. So yeah, I kind of agree with you. It is something which I can relate to. And obviously, I think you're talking maybe also about kind of the political aspect about it. I'm kind of just talking about the more personal aspect about it.
Yeah, it can relate to anything. That's
yeah. Obviously, I think definitely, there's the political aspect as well. But definitely, I certainly relate to it from a personal, like say, existential view.
Yeah, I guess that's why obviously John Doe takes it to an extreme.
Yes, I have killed far fewer people.
Yes, but that's the thing. It is kind of relatable. He has been blackpilled. That's the
he has been
phrase
blackpilled. Yeah.
has been blackballed, and therefore he's just gone off the deep end, and he really, really hates people like Mills, or he envies them. It's not hate, it is envy, because these there's a part of you which thinks, how the fuck can a guy like that do that? What a fucking idiot! But then it's like, well, why can't I be the fucking idiot? Why can't
so
I?
So you feel like it's sort of like a Frank Grimes?
Exactly, it's exactly like Frank Grimes.
How is this Homer Simpson guy just coasting through life, never having to struggle for everything, and everything's just perfect for him?
Yeah.
And it's like part of you hates him, part of you envies him, and then you grab some extremely high voltage. Well, I don't need safety gloves because I'm Homer Simpson.
Yes. Apart from in this movie, it's Frank Grimes. Frank Grimes has the upper hand. As
I'd like to see that crossover. Get on it, Dark Simpsons.
No, it is a good crossover. It would make sense. They should have done a parody of that, maybe. Yeah. The Simpsons. Well, I think it would have worked. I don't know.
Well, they must have come out in roughly the same time, actually, because Homer's Enemy, the Frank Grimes one, I think is season 8.
Yeah.
And then so that would be like 96, 97. So yeah.
Okay.
They should have done it.
Well, anyway, so John Doe envies Mills, but John Doe's character is also connected to Somerset. So the thing is with Morgan Freeman's character, Somerset, he's not surprised by John Doe because he's just a man. Obviously, he says that in the bar. He's not the devil. He's just a man. This is the thing which is really interesting. He views the world as depraved, like John Doe. They are very similar. Have a lot of personality traits which match. They are both smart. They like details. They both read. They're both knowledgeable about a whole bunch of stuff. So Somerset, then, this is the key to Somerset's arc, because he starts off thinking, well, the world's not a fine place. He sympathises with apathy. Obviously, he says literally that line. I have sympathy with people with apathy. How can people, apathy is the only solution. He starts, he's incredibly cynical, believes, he's just disillusioned, I guess, with the world around him. But the key thing is he doesn't want to be. He doesn't want to be disillusioned, because he has that line when he's talking to Gwyneth Paltrow, when he's talking about his kid, and he's saying, it was the right choice to have that abortion, but every day I wish I didn't make it. Because he wants to believe the world's so shit, but he doesn't actually. That's the best way to look at his character. And what happens is Mills, because of his enthusiasm, his idealism, he does rekindle Morgan Freeman's passion for the job. You can see him later on in the movie having a lot more vigor for what he's doing.
Yeah, I know you felt that spark. We're on to something, buddy.
Exactly, yeah. He has that line, and by the end, Morgan Freeman's fully engaged with it. And obviously, he continues. He says he'll be around after David Mills gets taken away for murdering John Doe. He doesn't retire, and he throws his. I don't know what is it. It's like this ticking thing across the room.
Oh, a metronome.
Yeah, and so that is, I guess, you could argue, a symbol of his apathy, maybe.
Yeah,
Throws it across. It's like, yeah, fuck this. I don't want to block the world out. I'm back in. I'm back into this, basically. And obviously, what happens is, this is why John Doe is important to him. He comes face to face with this version of himself, which very similar, but just an extreme version of him. He doesn't give in to the apathy at the end. I guess, well, you can tell from his last line. He says, the world is a horrible, depressing place. Nevertheless, it's still worth fighting for. And that's his arc. He goes from someone who's like, yeah, the world isn't worth fighting for. Fuck it. I'm getting far away from here. I'm incredibly apathetic. But obviously, he still deep down doesn't believe that. And his arc is he eventually makes it, or eventually becomes someone who isn't cynical, who still fights for the world. And that is, again, you can tell from the last line, that is the key theme to the movie. And the theme revolves around Somerset's arc. You should still, even though the world is incredibly shitty, you should still go out and fight for it. And what do you think of that, Michael?
I think that's obviously insightful, Luke. Obviously, that they have a similarity between their outlook that essentially is two different kinds of cynicism. And in fact, actually, I wanted to make a similar point, which is that I noticed, obviously, he does say, people are very jaded in the city. And then, of course, Kevin Spacey is saying you need to do something kind of crazy in order to get people's attention. Yes. I think that's kind of, and obviously you can see how there's kind of a reflection of that there. So he's basically saying people are so jaded now, you need to do something crazy in order to get people's attention. And obviously, that's related to Morgan Freeman, of course, saying that, people are very apathetic now. And obviously, you can kind of see an aspect of how, Morgan Freeman's cynicism is a different shade of Kevin Spacey's cynicism. Mm-hmm. And there is definitely an interaction there. And obviously, the fact that Morgan Freeman then seems to an extent, I've pretty much abandoned that cynicism, really, towards the end. And obviously that's a progression.
Yeah, he kind of abandons it, obviously. He still thinks the world is a shitty place. But he doesn't think apathy is the right way to go about it. And that's the thing. He never thought it was apathy, but just I guess the world around him convinced him that apathy was the only solution. But then he realizes at the end that no, you can't give in to apathy. You've got to make the world a better place. You've got to do that. That's the only way. It's the only way to keep going. And so overall, I guess you'd say that the antagonist in this movie isn't really John Doe. It's life itself.
That's life.
Because this is where we're going to talk about the aesthetics of the movie. It is incredibly dark and depressing, the city that these guys live in. It's grimy. Yeah, it's grimy, raining all the time. All the rooms are dark.
It's like Seattle.
Yeah, filthy. Well, that's the thing. The city isn't giving a name. It's not set in Chicago or New York, because you may think, you may have a positive reaction to those cities. You may think, oh, New York, set in New York. I like New York. New York's got some nice places.
Yeah. It's got a good song.
Yeah, this is just the bad part of New York or the bad part of Chicago. No, it's not that bad. But in this is a nameless city, so all you know about this place is how shit it is. So that then in turn is like life. This is just shit. You don't watching this movie is so dark and depressing that you can't think of anything else about this city apart from God. It must be fucking awful to live in this place, and therefore you can kind of sympathise with John Doe at the end of it, because his speech he gives, it's like, oh yeah, mate, the world is incredibly shitty. To him, I guess, you may not have a problem with prostitution, obviously. I mean, I don't, and you don't either, but, he sees so much evil in the world, he's like, okay, it kind of makes sense why he's doing this stuff. And another key about him is why he's not really the antagonist, is he's nameless, because, of course, the John Doe is a placeholder name. Yeah. He says himself he doesn't really matter that much. He's not the actual main villain. Of course, Morgan Freeman says he's just a man. And I do love this theme overall, as I agree with it. You critique systems, and I guess this is just critiquing life in general, and not individuals. That's how you do it, or nothing will get better. So do you try to... The way to... If you see so much shittiness going on in the world, try to change the world. I mean, that's a big thing to try and do, but try and change the system, I guess, rather than trying to correct individuals' behaviour, because that's never going to work. That is, I guess, where the theme leads on to that conclusion. Morgan Freeman, he's not that mad, I guess, with John Doe. He's just like, this is life. This is what it is. This life produces these kind of people. But that's, you still got to keep fighting. And obviously his arc is you can't be apathetic about these things. You still got to keep fighting. You still got to keep going. So yeah, that's the theme, I guess, and it's why I do like the theme a lot. I do agree with it. It is something that you got to do. And obviously, Michael, shall we relate this back to our real life?
No.
No, shouldn't?
No, I think that would be... I don't think we should get personally involved in these repeats, Luke. I think
might
get emotionally compromised.
And sorry, when I mean our real life, I don't mean our personal lives. I mean just the real life we're living in right now.
Okay, I'll let you do that, Luke.
Oh, thank you. Because I think, obviously, you saw those Labour leaks that came out recently.
Yes.
The Labour Party literally trying to sabotage itself to stop it becoming elected in 2017, and they may have succeeded in doing that because Corbyn was close to becoming Prime Minister. If you were a Labour supporter or someone who backed Labour policies like myself, and you saw your own party trying to, well, not my own party, but the party you supported actually trying to sabotage itself so it didn't win an election, and then you see the treatment of somebody like Bernie Sanders across the media, who has recently dropped out and endorsed Joe Biden, and it's actually incredible. Obviously, I've referenced the Joe Biden sexual assault earlier on in the review, and obviously, I assume you're caught up with that, Michael. You know how. Sorry.
Well, I know that the media's been quite quiet on it, and then I know Fox News has spoken about it, but
that's it. It's been extremely quiet. Places like CNN, New York Times only mentioned Tara Reid when Bernie Sanders had dropped out of the race.
Yes, I have heard.
Yeah, literally, that was the case. Her story had been around for a couple of weeks, but the day after Bernie drops out, well, we're going to start reporting on it. That kind of stuff, it just kind of does black pill you. It does. It's like, well, is there any hope for any, change in our world? Because obviously, I think you'd agree.
Yeah. Well, no change is going to come, like Obama would say.
And that, I think a lot of people in our generation think that. And obviously, that is a very big thing. And the only real way to change that is to get political parties or, politicians elected who actually can change the world, who can, who have the power to do something about it. And when those politicians or parties are kneecapped by everyone around them unfairly, it does seem quite depressing, really. But then, if you look at this movie, the way isn't apathy. It's not, well, just give up. That isn't the way. It is, you are black-pilled, yes, like John Doe was. You may be black-pilled, but the key is to keep fighting on. That is the key. And yes, I know relating this movie to our modern political situation may be a bit far-fetched, but I genuinely do think, based on just what has happened over this last week, the amount of fucking shit news that has come out, and, obviously this whole coronavirus thing, the world just seems to be incredibly shit now, Michael. It seems to be continuously shit, and I don't know when it's going to change. But yeah, basically, if you take the message from this movie, you can't be apathetic about it. So yeah, that's how I think how it can be related back to real life. What do you think? Does that make sense, or am I off base here?
No, yeah, you know what, Luke? I actually think, for once in your goddamn life, you might be just about right. Yeah, no, I think basically that would be the message that you should get from this film. I mean, the thing is, though, having said that, obviously the message you're getting is it has to be the message you're getting, based on that, is a very kind of optimistic, hopeful message. And obviously... well,
that's the ironic thing, yeah.
Yeah, most people walking out of this film probably did not feel like they were on the receiving end of an optimistic, hopeful message. So, I guess that just goes to show that grimy aesthetic can make even a hopeful message seem like shit.
Well, that's the thing.
Overall, yeah.
Sorry,
I think that is you are right, that is kind of the correct message you would draw if you were engaging in a proper thematic study of this film. Yeah.
So here's the thing. I did watch a video on YouTube, and they compared True Detective to this movie. And so basically at the end, it was the end of True Detective, which Rusty... have you seen True Detective, by the way?
I have not seen True. It's the TV show, isn't it?
It's a TV show. It's an anthology. It's like an 8-episode series on basically child ritualistic pedophilia in Louisiana.
Okay. It's that kind of show. No, I haven't seen it, actually, but you are welcome to spoil it if you like.
Okay, so, well, basically, they win, the detectives, at the end. They get them
out. Boring.
Yes. I mean, that was probably going to happen anyway, wasn't it? But yeah, so, what's he called? Matthew McConaughey is he's been wheeled out of the hospital at the end, and he says something about how the darkness is there, but look, there's light now. Something like that. And you watch that movie, and it's like, or that TV series, it's like, Jesus Christ, there's this scene in it when you don't actually see the child rape, obviously, but the characters are watching a child being raped on a VHS tape. And it's like, oh my God, it's just a fucking horrific scene. But then, somehow at the end, it ends with a hopeful message, like, hey, there's still light in this world. So, that's the thing. With this movie, it's incredibly dark, but ironically, it has an optimistic ending, I guess. Because Morgan Freeman's like, no, I'm just going to still keep fighting. That's, and in True Detective, it is the case. It's like just a harrowing story, so many harrowing scenes, and what you find is just horrible. There's so much corruption, and it's enough to blackpill you, I keep using that phrase, but at the end, hey, guess what? There's still light in the world. You should still keep fighting. So, and if you look at our world right now, of course, I related it back to politics. I would say, yeah, that is the right thing to do. And it's very easy to just be disillusioned, be apathetic, but you should not do that. And I guess, it's if you want to. I'm not viewing the world great right now, as I have stated. So that's why I think this movie's message does speak to me in that regard. I do think it's a good message, particularly at this time in all our lives. What do you think?
There is one film that I have been thinking of in terms of like a lot of the themes, and it's a film which offers a very different thematic message, which I think is worth bringing up, and that is, of course, No Country for Old Men. Where in No Country for Old Men, I mean, we're not going to go through the whole thing, but basically Tommy Lee Jones' character, he is an aging detective who is approaching the point of retiring, and he actively goes out of his way to avoid engaging with the central conflict of the film because he is too afraid of the of the violence that's precipitating all around. I shouldn't say precipitating, of the violence that is happening all around him. And of course, you get the famous scene right after Llewellyn has been gunned down by the Mexicans, and Tommy Lee Jones approaches the motel, and he puts his hand on the door, and on the other side we see, of course, the main bad guy of the film, Anton Chigurh, and Tommy Lee Jones stops, and he thinks, and he shakes visibly, and then he turns around and walks away. And essentially that is the point at which Tommy Lee Jones says, you know what, I'm not going to try. I don't like this world. It's a scary world. I'm afraid of it. And I don't want to do it anymore. And that's pretty much how he ends the film, basically just saying, you know, I don't understand this world. It's too violent, it's too corrupt, and then he retires. And obviously that is very much the exact opposite to this film. So I suppose there's definitely that would be the kind of pure cynical message. And the funny thing is that people did not receive, I think this is interesting, because obviously people did not necessarily receive No Country for Old Men as being like a film that they were disgusted by or offended by or anything like that, whereas people were like that with this film, which is kind of weird because this film has a much more optimistic message. So basically, I just think it's interesting to compare how those two films had their own different kind of thematic views on the cynicism of an old man.
Yeah, so I guess that No Country for Old Men is more black-pilled than this movie. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, No Country. I mean, most Coen Brothers films are pretty black-pilled.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, what's that ending in Burn After Reading when it's like, what's he called? The guy, J. Jonah Jameson. What's he called? The actor?
Oh, fucking hell. J.K. Simmons.
That's it, J.K. Simmons. Yeah. Just saying, what did we learn? It's just like, I don't know. It's just, the most black-pilled ending you could possibly get.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good film.
Yes. And
let's watch Burn After Reading. Come on, Luke. Burn After Reading commentary track.
Yeah, but again,
and that's also got Brad Pitt as an idiot in it. So there we go. Yeah. A simple character.
Yeah, as a simple character. Yeah, that's the thing. That's the two different philosophies of the movie, of the two movies. Yeah. No Country for Old Men, everything's shit. This is just, don't try at all. Apathy is the right thing because there's actually no point. This movie, you see the character arc of Morgan Freeman. He starts off thinking that, but then towards the end of the movie, he changes, and at the end, he's sticking around. He's not retiring. He's not giving in. The world is worth fighting for. That's literally what he says at the end. It is worth fighting for. Tommy Lee Jones doesn't come anywhere close to that in No Country for Old Men. So that'd be a good comparison, actually, a good video essay. The differences between No Country for Old Men and Seven.
Yeah, I like
that'd be nice.
Let's do it, Luke.
Yes.
I think if someone had to do it, and it might as well be us.
So I've said I agree with the philosophy in Seven. Do you agree with the philosophy in Seven on No Country for Old Men? What do you agree with now? Because I've given my opinions on it, so I feel like you should.
I hate committing myself strongly to things. But I suppose I would say that I probably agree with the philosophy in Seven. But having said that, I mean, we're still very young, Luke. So maybe we should wait until we're aged old men, and then we should come back to this question. Because now, I've got some. That I have got the element of there isn't hope. But I mean, having said that, I guess David Fincher was probably reasonably young when he made this, so maybe he reflects our own kind of. It's a weird kind of cynicism meets optimism, which I think is in this film, and also I think maybe quite a few millennials, because it's kind of weird actually. Like a lot of millennials, especially kind of the internet, their attitude is simultaneously everything's shit, everything's awful, but also communism's just around the door, around the corner. The fully automated luxury gay space communism is just around the corner, and then everything's going to be great. So it's kind of there's an opposite to cynicism there. So who cares? Whereas fascism just when you say fuck it, let's just kill all the Jews. Nothing, everything's shit. We lost World War One. Let's just kill some Jews. Just something to do really.
Yeah, but I guess yes. Obviously, you mentioned millennials. Yeah, our generation, we could feel black-pilled, and you're right. That is something that I do pick up on the internet, and it's something that you could say, well, that's kind of like me. I just feel so fucking shit. All the things that have happened recently in the world involving politics, which of course I'm invested in, as you could tell. So, and the reason why I'm invested in politics is again because it literally changes that affects life. So that's why. So I think I think it's a rational thing to feel black-pilled about that your political candidate didn't win.
Well, I'm actually more black-pilled about the women in my comic book movies, which I think is the truly rational thing to be angry about.
Yeah, I guess so. But yeah, I mean, you hit on a good point. It's easy to have hope when you are in our 20s, but what if you are in your 60s? You'd probably be more like Tommy Lee Jones. Yeah. Like it's kind of easy.
Imagine how just angry and angsty Karl Marx must have been in his last days. Just like, fucking hell, I hope we don't have to wait too long for this shit to be over.
Yeah, maybe. But to be fair to Karl Marx, well, he hasn't lived through the things that we've lived through, which I think are undoubtedly worse in terms of...
Well, I mean, I would say, generally speaking, back in Victorian times, things were shitter. But, like,
But you could see progress being made.
Yeah. Well, also, I think the other thing is, I mean, let's not forget that Karl Marx lived during the longest period of like peace in the world, really.
That's a good
between
point
like
as well.
1860 and the 1900s. It was all great.
Yeah. And progress in his time, it was happening. There was progress. And when did he die? Do you know when he died? Because
I actually don't know. I think he died in like the late 1800s. I mean, I obviously he did because he wrote Communist Manifesto in. It might have been 1890s or 1880s.
So for Marx, I guess maybe he just didn't live too long.
1883.
Yeah, but around the corner was... Oh, right, maybe it's a bit early then. Around the corner was obviously for him the revolution in Russia and things like the British Labour Party being formed.
Well, yeah, also, I mean, he lived to see the Paris Commune, so there we go. That's something.
Yeah, so who knows whether our optimism, Michael, is misplaced or not, whether we should have the philosophy of Morgan Freeman or the philosophy of Tommy Lee Jones. But what's the key is they both agree that the world is shit. They both agree that the world is shit, and I think the world is shit. So we got half of it right. Now the question is, the other half. Should we still fight? Should we still hope? Or should we just give up and be apathetic? One is obviously more appealing than the other, but I guess considering our age, maybe it's natural that that's the case. If when we're in our 60s and the world still is so fucking shit, maybe Tommy Lee will accept that Tommy Lee Jones is the answer, and we should all be blackpilled and never expect anything good to happen in our lives.
Yeah,
maybe. So I guess that I think that was a really good discussion on the theme of the movie.
Yes.
Yeah, because obviously we related it to the real life and related to different movies, True Detective, Country for Old Men. So I think that was good. So shall we now conclude, Michael?
Let's conclude.
So do you want to go first? Because I feel like I talked for the majority of the theme.
Yeah. Okay, I'll go first. So this film, it is good. I think mainly I would say that it's kind of functions mostly as a kind of very plotty film, which is kind of weird because the plot is in some sense very simple. But I would say that for me, it's a film which the main thing you're going to get out of it is the intrigue of the murder mystery aspect, and also the sheer weight of the gruesomeness, and of course the ending, which is, I think, very powerful. I don't think the film necessarily has a great emotional core, and that's partially because of the lack of chemistry between Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman. And I think that, to some extent, I think does take a bit out of the sort of power of the ending, actually. The fact that, you don't really get an impression of... you don't really come to like Brad Pitt a massive amount. Not to say you dislike him, but just say, there are other films I can think of where I've liked the characters more, and therefore I think the big moment at the end where something kind of gut-wrenching happens is made more gut-wrenching by the fact I really like these characters. In this film, I don't really know if I saw that. And obviously, I mean, like I said, I did see in this film little preemptive breadcrumbs of where I thought this film was going, and I thought it might have been in its own way, an interesting direction, and obviously... it didn't, which is fine. I forgive it. Overall, though, I really want to say high 7. Not, I mean, I know people might say, it's an 8. It's a blah, blah, blah. For me, personally, I think this film, it's a really strong plot. But when I think like really strong plot, I tend to think high 7, low 8. Just looking at, I think maybe low 8, actually. I think I'm going to put it, above, Return of the Living Dead, but below Coco. So that's actually, I was thinking high 7 in my head. I thought high 7, but looking at like some of the films I have, I actually think it's a low 8.
Okay, well, I think this is better than a low 8, Michael. I think this is.
Well, you always like to give films high ratings, Luke.
Yes, that is my cliche, I guess.
No, I mean, I tend to. You seem to give a lot of films. Like whenever I get into like the 8 range, the high 7, low 8 range, that's when you tend to crack out your 9s.
Well, I think I might have to crack out a 9 for this one as well. Yeah, I am. So interestingly, Rotten Tomatoes, it's only got like 81%, which is surprising. But maybe people just didn't get the themes at the start. Maybe they thought it was just a gruesome movie about this fucking serial killer who murders people in a unique way. And it is certainly just more than that. Obviously, you do have cliches and you have the twists and turns of a regular detective movie. But again, the ending, one of the greatest endings to a film I've ever seen. I stand by that for all the reasons I listed before. And I think the way the characters are written, and the views that they espouse is perfect. It really is. And the overall message of the movie, yeah, the world is incredibly shit, incredibly dark, but you should still fight for it. Yeah, I have to agree with that. And maybe that's why why I'm going to give it a 9, because I think the message does speak to me right at this moment in life. So maybe if this was a few months ago, I wouldn't give it a 9. I don't know, Michael. But yeah, I think right now, if I was to compare it to real life, have you heard of the term Jokerfied?
No.
Joker. So essentially, it's basically a synonym for black pill. But it's kind of more than that, I'd say, because Jokerfied is like, well, you do crazy things like the Joker. It's just a fucking... I don't know, I've seen this a lot on Twitter, the word Jokerfied. It's kind of like... well, obviously it was a reaction to the Joker movie coming out in 2019. That's why it's been uttered. But it's like, oh, just go mask off. You've heard of that phrase, right?
Fuck it, mask off.
Yeah, mask off. There's a great meme I should send to you with Jesse and Walt from Breaking Bad involving that. Jesse's basically saying these words like mask off, black pill, Jokerfied, and Walt is like, Jesse, what the fuck are you talking about? Yeah, well, that's the thing. That's what John Doe is. I feel like he's the Jokerfied character in this. He's just seen all the shit that's gone in, and he's just said, fuck it, I'm going to do this. But that is the wrong message, Michael. You can't be Jokerfied. You see all this evil in the world. You can't do what John Doe does. John Doe does. You
don't do what John Doe does.
Yeah. You have to be like Somerset, and I think it's a really good message. And you know how I love messages, Michael. How I love them. I love themes.
You do love messages.
Yeah, and so even though
especially the strong message we sent to the EU by voting Leave.
God, yeah. I think about how much shit has happened during our lives, Michael. How much shit.
I hate it.
You think the first memory I had was of something happening in politics was the Iraq War. Then I had the financial crisis of 2008. Then you had the coalition government in 2010 get in. And then you had a full Conservative government in 2015. Then in 2016, fucking Donald Trump is president and then Brexit. 2017, Labour get so close to winning, the left-wing government, but you find out they were actually sabotaged. So even when they could have done it, fucking forces outside of their control prevented them from doing it. Then obviously the Conservatives win in 2019. Then you have this coronavirus pandemic. Bernie Sanders gets fucked over. He's not going to be president. And it's going to be Biden or Trump. And who knows how long this pandemic will be. Basically, Mike, what's the one good thing that's happened in our life in politics? What's the one really big event which was good? Tell me one thing.
Is there an answer you have in your head that you're thinking of, or are you asking me because you genuinely
I genuinely want to know.
Okay, I was just wondering if this is like what is the one big thing, and I was supposed to have a correct answer.
No, yeah, I just want to know.
Wait, okay, we're gonna have to do some cutting here, Luke. Oh, I have a minute to think about this.
Well, can you? That's the question.
Let's see. No, that's kind of shit. No.
That's kind of shit.
Not really that. I'm just trying to think of like places outside of the West. That's going to be my strategy. Just think about places that aren't like in the UK or America or any of the rest of Europe. And I'm going to come up with one any minute now. No, India's fascist now.
That's fucking great.
in our lifetime, something good that's happened politically. Apartheid. Well, we don't really remember that though, so that doesn't really count. And also, that kind of didn't really end very well anyway.
Yeah, I think there's still quite a lot of racism in South Africa, but it is a good thing. Yeah. It is a good thing, But again, that was before. I don't remember that happening because obviously I wasn't born.
Yeah, exactly. It was before our living memory as well. The famine in Ethiopia ended. That's not really political, though. Okay,
yeah.
I'm going to get this one. Okay, you ready? I'm trying to think of like a big thing. Like, I feel like there must be something in Africa that's happened. I've got it.
Okay.
Rwanda launched a unprecedented and altogether miraculous economic recovery in the wake of the Rwandan genocide, and is now one of the best countries in the world or certainly in Africa, for things like gender equality, and economic growth and unemployment, things like that. They've just done a really good job. And I think, sure, the US and the UK and France and Nordic countries and Russia and China and South America and Australia and New Zealand and Southeast Asia have all been, and the Middle East have all been shit. But Rwanda has done really well. So I think,
what is the percentage
Rwanda
of the Earth's population who are Rwandan?
So the population of Rwanda, Luke, is 12.3 million. And let's just assume the population. Okay, world population is 7.594 billion. So what we're going to do is 12.3 million divided by 7.4 so 594 billion times 100, 0.16%.
Okay,
of the world's population is Rwandan.
Great. That's wonderful. So I'm really happy for those 0.16% of people. Really happy.
It's a great day to be Rwandan. I mean, a great time to be Rwandan. Tell you what, somewhere out there's a podcast from Rwanda of two people reviewing Se7en, and I tell you what, I really agree with this message about how like I couldn't understand the idea that the world's shit. I mean, the world's great.
Yeah.
Think of all the, we've got this massive tourism campaign. We're bringing in loads of money. Our unemployment is just going way down. Oh, that's great, man. We got, Rwanda actually is the only country in the world which has a mandated 50-50 gender split in their legislature. So they have, basically, they're doing real good. Well done. We love them.
One day.
One day we can all aspire to be a bit more like Rwanda.
Anyway, so Michael, what are we doing next week?
Well, next week we are doing a classic known as Avengers Endgame.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Avengers Endgame.
The final installment of the Avengers Infinity Saga or whatever. Except actually, I think that Spider-Man Far From Home was irritatingly actually also included in the Infinity Saga, which makes no sense because it's literally called Avengers Endgame. Idiots.
Okay. Anyway, end of Phase 3. We're going to do it because of Black Widow, but because that's obviously cancelled. It's going to be a year since it came out, so we might as well do it. Obviously, the highest grossing movie of all time. So yeah, join us for that. Thank you for listening. We've been selecting and reflecting on Se7en, and also, or particularly me, adding my own input into the message and the theme and how I believe it is the correct thing, which is, I guess, again, why I rated this movie a 9. It's part of the reason. But yeah, join us next week for Avengers Endgame. Who have you been, Michael?
I've been Michael.
I've been Luke. Thanks for listening. Goodbye.
Goodbye.